Hope you all are having a fantastic day and just crushing your mindset and your mental performance. It's a lovely time of year, one of my favorite times of year here in Indiana, central Indiana. Summer is ending and fall is beginning. But with that, sometimes comes summer cold and a little bit of congestion, which I happen to have. So, anyway, we'll get through it. And you might hear a random meow in the background from time to time. So, it is a real cat. We have a new member of the family, and he's been here for a few months now, but he's very curious. So there's a good chance he'll hop on my shoulder and talk like a parrot. But anyway, while I'm thinking of it, be sure to give a good old thumbs up to this video. Really would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel as well. Cover a lot of different things, pretty eclectic topics from mindset and mental performance. Sometimes I'll do a bourbon tasting. I'm getting ready or I'm actually planning to do another fermentation. Going to make my blueberry mead. I don't know if it's famous yet, but those who have tried it like it. So I'm going to make some more of that here soon. Talk about travel vans and probably a few other things that I miss as well. So anyway, subscribe. Lots of a variety of content. So if you're into any of those things or curious about any of those things, hope you'll enjoy that. But anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit about mindset. And specifically, I wanted to share a couple of personal stories. All of them are relatively recent. So let me take a sip of water. First story, Amanda and I were on a recent trip, and we were going to spend a few days in North Carolina, in the mountains of North Carolina, kind of checking that area out, and then continue on to spend some time down in beautiful Edisto, South Carolina, which is a place where we have short-term rental, which is another one of those topics that I cover from time to time. But on this particular trip, as we're driving to North Carolina, I made the comment, something along the lines of, hey, lover, Amanda, did you know that the area where we're going is a home to where a lot of the guys that are on the show Moonshiners, which is a show that I watch. It's a guilty pleasure. I enjoy watching that show. A lot of those guys, they're from this area. Did you know that? And she's like, I know. I didn't think about it. I didn't realize it. And what I put out there, I said, if we meet one of those guys, if we see one of those guys when we're out and about, I am going to go talk to them. And she's like, okay, just being kind about it, So we visited this area called Bryson City, North Carolina. And on this particular day, we took, I think it's called the Great Smoky Mountain Railroad or something like that. We took a little excursion, a little trip. It was a moonshine tasting experience on this particular adventure in the town of Bryson City, North Carolina. And after we were done with the excursion, we had a great time, fun experience. We stopped into this little local brewery, and man, I wish I could remember the name of it, but I forget, and I'm not going to waste your time trying to get this noggin to remember that. But anyway, we go to this brewery, and we go and sit outside. They have a deck on the outside, and we're enjoying a pint, just talking about our adventures so far that particular trip. And I noticed out of the corner of my eye that just inside the building, someone in there looks familiar. Now, it's not uncommon for me to be out at anywhere, frankly, and to bump into somebody that I know. It happens sometimes. But on this particular case, I'm like, no, I recognize that person, but I don't know who it is. And so I, honey, I think that's some. Those were a couple of guys from that show, Moonshiners. She kind of rolled her eyes and whatever. I'm like, I'm going to go find out. So as I was walking in, they were actually getting up to leave, but I tapped the one gentleman on the shoulder, and I just politely asked if he was on the show Moonshiners, and he said yeah. And I asked if he'd be willing to get a picture, and he was agreeable. And so I asked Amanda to come take the picture because I don't do good with taking selfies. It's a thing. Ask my kids. But anyway, she comes in, takes the picture, and it's Mark Jacobs and Huck from the show Moonshiners. And so they were kind. They, went on their merry way. And she looks at me and she goes, "I cannot believe that." And at first she's like, "Are you sure those guys are from Moonshiners?" I go, 100% absolutely. So when we went back to the Airbnb soon thereafter, we pulled up the show and found an episode where those guys were in it. And sure enough, met some Moonshiners. So I put it out there as we were like, boy, wouldn't it be cool if I met one of these guys? And then it happens, right? Continuing on from that same trip. Now we're down in, we get into Edisto, South Carolina. And when we get there, we usually make a few stops, grocery store or whatnot. And we stop and get some bourbon as well. And the first place we stopped, I don't remember if it was the grocery. It's irrelevant. But the person's like, "Oh, are you ready for the storm?" Now, Amanda nor I, we typically don't watch the news, nor do we watch the weather. We had no idea about anything. And so we're like, no, what? And so we learned that there was a tropical storm, might have been a hurricane at this point, I can't remember, that was bearing down or getting ready to bear down on the coast of Florida. And the projected storm path was right through where we were in Edisto. So we really had no idea. Now, here's the interesting part about this particular story, and I'll share the details of it here in a moment. But the interesting part is I've always been curious, like, what would it be like to go through a hurricane? I've said this to Amanda and to others, like, I kind of want to do that sometime, go through a hurricane. Now, I know that sounds weird, maybe, but I've just been curious. And I know that hurricanes can cause horrific damage, and I'm not trying to make light of that at all. I'm just curious about it. As a kid, I always grew up being fascinated with thunderstorms and that sort of thing, and lightning and all that. It just, Mother Nature, she is an awesome thing sometimes, what she can do. So anyway, we stop at the next place, and sure enough, they're like, "Oh, what about the storm? Are you guys prepared?" And I think this was at the liquor store. I was getting bourbon. They go, "Oh, you're having a hurricane party?" I'm like, I really don't know. So the third stop before we got to the house, kind old lady, asked her about the storm, and she's like, "Oh, honey, it's just going to be a little bit of wind, a little bit of rain." And clearly someone who had lived in the area for a long, long time. So I'm like, okay, I put a lot of faith in her response and reaction. So anyway, we get to the house, and I think it was the second, maybe third day that we were there. We're kind of paying attention. And that morning, the hurricane had hit landfall in Florida, Hurricane Idalia. And they were projecting that it would be in our area somewhere around 7 p.m., 8 p.m., something like that. So we're paying attention. And as the day goes on, clearly the wind picks up. Surprisingly, we got some rain, but we didn't get a ton. But I think it's because we were kind of on the back half of the hurricane. But as the main force of this storm hits our area, it's right as the high tide is coming in, which happened to be the blue moon, once in a blue moon, full moon at the end of August. And usually when there's full moons, the tide is also higher. So we got kind of a perfect storm, if you will. Wind picked up. We got water into our backyard, into our fire pit area, stayed out of the house. And we're blessed that all we had was some debris. But I got to go through a hurricane, which is crazy, right? So, when you put things out there, sometimes they happen, and they don't always happen the way you think about them, but they do happen. So be careful, or be purposeful about what you're putting out there. The third quick story I'll share with you, we recently went to, and I guess this is a two-parter as well. We recently planned a family vacation. Amanda and her kids, and me and my two kids. We were going to go to Florida, specifically to Orlando. We were going to spend time at Disney World and time at Universal Studios. Uh, I last time I was at Disney, I think I was like 10, and I didn't have a wonderful experience then. It was okay. Don't mishear me. Glad my parents took us, but it had nothing to do with my parents. It had to do with standing in the lines the whole time. So anyway, we went as a family, and before we went, my mind wasn't right. Confession, my mind was not right. I was not looking forward to the trip. It's a lot of energy, a lot of personalities, a lot of things happening. And, for that to go smoothly, like I'd already convinced myself in my mind, something was going to be, eh. And then I caught myself. I realized, Spear, that is a terrible, terrible, terrible mindset. Get your mind right. So I did some breathing. I did some meditation one morning. And then I got to the keyboard and I did some journaling. This particular case, I did some rehearsal journaling, or future state journaling, if you will. The time frame that I was writing was as if the trip had already completed and we were on the airplane and we were flying home. And I spoke about how awesome the trip went and how everybody had a great time and all these sorts of things. So really positive journaling type of experience. Again, I was in the mind frame as if it had already happened. So good news is the trip went amazingly well. The kids were friggin' awesome. The lines at Disney and Universal, they still kind of sucked, but all in all, everybody got through it, and we had a really great time. So that was something you can do. Just think about it, meditate. Maybe do a little bit of journaling. I told you it's coming. Do a little bit of journaling about the topic and do it in a positive way. Just when your mind is right, when your mind is in a good space, it's pretty awesome what can happen. But the last thing I'll share with you on this particular topic of mindset and manifesting, if you will, and visualizing, at least for today, is while we were in Diagon Alley in Universal Studios. It's a big Harry Potter thing. I've seen some of the movies. I'm not a Harry Potter nerd. Some of my kids are. Actually, all of our kids are. And so we go into this experience of a magic wand or something. You go into this wand shop, and supposedly it's like a fan experience. And the wand master, keeper, owner of the shop, whatever his title is, chooses somebody from the audience because there's some scene in Harry Potter where the wand selects him and whatnot. And so this is a coveted thing for the Harry Potter zealots out there. They want to be selected. As we were in line for this experience, my daughter Morgan says, "Oh, they're totally going to choose me." I'm like, okay, cool. So we walk in, and wouldn't you know it, sure enough, the wand master chooses Morgan to have the experience. And so anyway, it's kind of cool. And it's definitely cool to see, something like that when one of your kids and someone you love actually has that kind of experience as well. So I'm rambling now, but appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you stayed all the way to the end to hear all these stories. I've got a few others that I might share down the road. But anyway, hope you all are doing fantastic. And again, there's a lot to be said by getting your mind in a good spot. If there's something that you have coming up that you're maybe not looking forward to, don't dread it. Take some time to breathe about and think about it and meditate about it. Maybe write about it. Try to imagine that it's already happened and it's been a fantastic experience. If you can get your mind there, you can face just about anything you're going to come up against in life. So I hope you all crush it and enjoy the end of summer and transition into fall. And I'll talk to you all real soon.